One spring day, I was working outside on the property, and I took a good look at our house and decided the exterior certainly could use a fresh coat of paint. So after a few phone calls, I found someone to do it, and we came to an agreement, and they figured the job would take maybe 3 to 4 days. Well, that was great news. When I came home from work after the first day, I saw the front of the house had been done. Siding and trim looked fantastic. The next day, as I headed off to work, the painters had already started on one side, and by the time I got home at the end of the day, they were packing things up. One of them came over and said, "We're done." Well, that really surprised me. I thought, wow, that's a lot faster than I expected. Well, let's take a look at it. The front looked great. One side looked great until I got to the back. Nothing was done. They were on the other side of the house. I looked at the guy and I said, "So what's up with this?" "I think you missed a spot." He said, "Yeah, well, that's all we're going to do. I'm sure you can finish it." So I looked at him and said, "You're kidding, right? This isn't what we agreed to." He just shrugged his shoulders and said, "Well, we've spent enough time working at it." All I could think of was, it's half done. That's like buying a new car with only 2 wheels. Or going into a restaurant and ordering a hamburger and getting half a hamburger. Not only was this scenario upsetting and frustrating, it seemed so totally disrespectful to misrepresent what he had made a commitment to do. I'm sure any one of us can think about instances where someone made a promise to do something and never finished it. The reality is that this is just a story, a simplified representation of what the secular world believes that marriage is: a 50-50 effort, or as is often said, it's all about give and take. The difficulty is that at the very core of this belief, each spouse only needs to be committed to the relationship half the time, and usually has an expectation that the other spouse will pick up the remaining 50% or pick up the slack. Eventually, the marriage runs the risk of becoming a tally sheet of negotiation. If I do this, then you do that. So the question remains, if you only give 50%, then what do you hold in the remaining 50%? When commitment and love are perceived as conditional, is it perhaps the hardness of heart? And where did that come from? Well, it's a result of the fall, when our first parents, through free will, disobeyed God, and concupiscence, big word, it's great for Scrabble, concupiscence, the default to sin, and it entered into the human heart. It's here that the original relationship between man and woman became disrupted, disordered, and unbalanced. But also the relationship between the man and woman and God. Again, God didn't change, humanity did. This gives us a better understanding of why some marriages fail, bringing such pain to couples, extended families, and communities. Jesus brings into view the hurt and brokenness that comes from marital breakdowns, and especially the difficulty it creates for the children. Unlike the animals in creation, Adam had been given self-awareness to know and to love God and to be in relationship with Him. Adam was freely called to respond and entered into this relationship. But, as we heard in the readings, it was not good for man to be alone. So, from Adam, God creates Eve as his spouse to help him fulfill his deepest purpose of life, which is to love. They become a gift to each other in marriage, and their love is a reflection of God's love. So, the fall could have been the end of the story. But, like any good parent who always hopes for the best, is always prepared for the not so good. God, who is loving and merciful, had a plan. And through the salvation and redemption of his Son, that plan was put into play. So when Jesus was questioned by the Pharisees, he was aware of their hardness of heart and answers their question by redirecting them back to Genesis, not to rationalize marriage through man's laws, but to remind them of God's original plan for humanity in marriage. One man, one woman. And that this love should bear fruit. But we can't do this alone. We need to have Christ in the relationship. He overcomes the disorder that sin has caused and transforms it. Through grace, he radiates his presence into the world. It is giving and graciously receiving through a love that is a total and selfless commitment. Couples that invite Christ into their marriage will find the grace to mature, experience the mystery of Christ's love, and will bear witness to that love. If you recall, just a year ago, right here in front of the sanctuary at St. John Vianney, many couples came together to share the milestones of their married life together and to renew their vows. And next weekend, this will occur again. What a wonderful testament to matrimony. It was true, it was real, and it was a joyous occasion. This wonderful sacrament. In the words of then Pope John Paul II, he said, "Love should be seen as something which in a sense never is, but is always only becoming. And what it becomes depends upon the contribution of both persons and the depth of their commitment."